The plan to release inmates early was something the state says it was already working on before last night's incident, which, by the way, the Department of Corrections refers to as a disturbance. Releasing some inmates early is viewed as a way of social distancing by creating more space behind bars. As far as last night's incident at the Monroe Correctional Complex, Department of Corrections Secretary Stephen Sinclair said he was, quote, extremely disappointed with the actions of inmates he says were resistant into going into quarantine to protect vulnerable inmates after 6 fellow offenders tested positive for coronavirus. Sinclair said 50 or so broke quarantine and went out to the recreation yard where they vandalized equipment. No one was injured, but staff had to use pepper spray. Now, as far as early releases, the state says nonviolent offenders with 60 days or fewer left on their sentences could be released.
If we're going to provide safety for some of the more vulnerable people in the population, people over the age of 65, the people who have underlying health concerns, some of the other inmates might have to give up their television for a certain period of time. And we just need a little cooperation to do that.
The governor says we should expect an announcement on these early releases within the next few days. At that point, we will find out who will be released early and how many. In Olympia, Drew Mickelson, King 5 News.